Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast here. Today I've got Stephen Kirlew. He is a good friend of mine, and he is an 11-time national champion arm wrestler from the UK, and he's also the world champion in 2006, and he just has an amazing story, and I wanted to share it with all you guys. So I think we're going to learn a lot from Stephen today. But Stephen, pleasure to have you here, man.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All the way out here in Utah.
Yeah.
So you actually live here part-time now, correct? Here in Utah?
Yeah, so I'm a marketing consultant, so I work for a brand down in Linden.
Okay.
I consult for them. So you might have heard of PB Fit, peanut butter powder. So I come over here every kind of 3 months for about a month, as much as I can get away with, basically.
Okay, great. And so Utah, so is that what brought you out to Utah, this job with PB Fit, or were you already out here? Because we met a couple months ago.
Yeah, I was working back then, but I also have a lot of friends, so I've been visiting back and forth Utah for a while, and then I met a guy who needed a consultant, needed a kind of VP of marketing role.
Oh, okay.
So that's the kind of role I feel at the moment, and it just so happened to work out, so yeah, I'm here.
No, that's great, man. That works out great. Well, and so I want to hear your story. I think people are intrigued before we kind of get into, there's so many questions with arm wrestling. When I was a kid, I used to love arm wrestling, and then I watched, I think I saw a video or something, I saw a guy's elbow pop out or something, and I'm like, been afraid to arm wrestle ever since, and so.
Yeah, so
but I want to hear your story. I want to hear how you, how do you get into arm wrestling? Tell us a little bit of your background.
So when I was a kid, my dad was in the building industry, and in the building industry it's quite a macho kind of environment, and so people used to come over the house and he used to arm wrestle people, like, oh, you look pretty strong, let's have an arm wrestle then. And the missionaries came over, I'm a Mormon, and so we used to have the missionaries over on a Sunday for dinner, and my dad was like, let's have a bit of an arm wrestle and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I used to go to school, I was about 14, 15, 16, I was the best in the school, and people used to bring challenges to me, and that was kind of like the macho, the thing to do to find out who's the strongest or who's the toughest. Oh, let's arm wrestle.
Yeah, sure.
Instead of having a fight, it's just an arm wrestle. So,
and by the way, were you like, because you're not a huge, like I was surprised when you told me that you were, no, when you said you were like the 11-time national champion arm wrestler, you would expect somebody with some arm that looks like, like, I don't know, like Rambo or something, but like, I mean, you're a big dude, you're not that much bigger than me, and I don't even want to know what you could do to me in an arm wrestle, but, so like back then, were you littler or were you bigger?
I was pretty skinny then. I mean, a lot of the arm wrestling's power comes from kind of tendons and ligaments, and so it's kind of rock climber power, You see these like really skinny guys who like lifting up themselves up with one arm, and you kind of wonder where do they get the power from, because they're so skinny. But arm wrestling power generally comes from, well, I mean, strength essentially comes from the chain of strength is muscle, tendon, and bone. And so if you've got a weakness within any of that area, you cannot like deliver the intended power or force of your kind of, like, let's say, muscle. So if I have weak tendons or if I have a weak bone, then I can't lift the weight that my muscle can kind of essentially do. So what I do in arm wrestling is I train a lot of I do muscle isolation, which is full range motion stuff. I also do half range isometric training. So I do.
So you can actually train your ligaments and your bones.
Yeah, your tendons essentially. The bones, I guess, are growing stronger as I put the strain again on
everything else.
And arm wrestling puts a hell of a lot of strain on the heck of a lot.
So did you start when you were a kid? I mean, you started doing a lot of arm wrestling. Did you start then doing this training for that, or was then once you like? When did you like? I'm actually really good at this.
I just used to arm wrestle when I was a kid, and it was like, I'm pretty good at this. I actually thought I was the best in the world when I was 16, and I had
you were.
Well, I had a rude awakening when I turned up to a competition, and like basically I got my wrist snapped, and
wow.
so there's a sheath of kind of ligament that holds the bones in place in your wrist, and that just snapped on my first competition. So the doctor said, don't ever compete again, otherwise you'd have to have a serious operation. And I'd found something that I was pretty good at, so I didn't want to like obviously give it up.
Sure.
I wanted to be the best in the world, and that's what I kind of trained to do. So in that competition I got 5th place. I was 17 years old. I'd never competed in the British Championships or the World Championships because it was always on a Sunday, and then went on my mission and came back, and they
so hold on, back
the
up a second. You said you never competed for the championship because they did it on Sundays. So because of the Mormon background.
Yeah, that's right. So
okay.
I mean, I've always been brought up to consider that Sunday as a kind of sacred Sabbath day, and you're not to compete or not to like play in sports and that type of thing. So. I've never done it to this day, which I will never do. So,
wow, that's very cool.
And I've a lot of kind of the press, local press and stuff, like picked up on that, because I had presented in local schools about why I didn't do that, because they were talking about
gave you a pretty cool platform
to
kind of share your beliefs and things.
Yeah,
like
that's right. And so Yeah, I was able to then compete in the British Championships when I got back from my mission, because they changed it to a Sunday. Okay. So a Saturday. Sorry.
So when you were on your mission, were you just arm wrestling all the other missionaries the whole time?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
I went to Manchester in England.
Oh, you went right there in England.
So I'd arm wrestle people who wanted to go, but generally people don't want to give you a go if they hear that you're pretty good.
Yeah. You have to like sandbag
unless they
it,
get
like,
a few drinks down them, and then they're a bit more confident. You know?
Not too many of the other missionaries were getting a few drinks.
No, only a couple. No, I'm kidding.
No, that's great. So you got back and you said they switched. So you had competed professionally. I mean, even when you were 17, you said that's when you broke your wrist.
Yeah.
So and then you really got into it when you got back from
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, there was, I don't know if you've seen the Over the Top, the Sylvester
Stallone
movie.
Of course,
So when I was a kid, that was my motivation.
The truck driver, right?
Yeah, exactly. I remember. And that was the point. I thought I was the best in the world. And I saw it on a breakfast TV show.
I think I watched that movie, and for like 3 days, I wanted to be an arm wrestler as well, and then I realized I wasn't very good, and my elbow hurt, so I just
gave it up. But then when I got back from my mission, I started to do it more seriously, and I did my university degree in marketing, and then after that I spent kind of probably 6 months just training, and then I went to Connecticut in America, 2006, and I was lucky enough to win the competition. But when there were guys in that competition that I could still consider better than me, but on the day I happened to win. And
sure.
That's often what happens in sports. Often the world record holder or the time in that season or whatever, in 100-meter running, for example, they don't win because the nerves all that particular day, or somebody raises to the occasion, and that's what I was lucky enough to do on that particular day.
So how many people did you have to beat out to be the world champion?
I think there was probably about 20 to 30 people.
And they were from all over the world?
Yeah, so like Russia, Armenia, Canada, America.
And are you sponsored at this time, or how are you paying to get to America? How are you paying for all the training?
So I had a sponsorship from a double glazing, a window replacement company.
Okay.
So they were trying
to wearing their name across
exactly.
Your shirt.
Yeah. They were trying to compare the strength of their windows to the strength of my arms. They're trying to link it in that way. Like they're fine anyway, So they paid for my travel, and they paid for my expenses, and then I had a supplement provider that gave me free supplements.
So what's tougher, your arm or the windows?
Probably their windows. But yeah, no, it's an amazing. I've been able to travel all over the world. So I've been to South Africa, Japan, Canada a couple of times, America a few times, Sweden.
Wow, all for arm wrestling.
Yeah, amazing. Germany. So I've been on the centre stage with 15,000 people watching, with Arnold Schwarzenegger on stage watching arm wrestling. It's really amazing.
How was that? So with 15,000 people, I just imagine the rush.
Yeah.
Did you win that one when you had that many? I mean, you probably
I got third place it was at the Arnold Classics in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. And what year was this?
That was 2007, so that was the year after. Yeah. So it was a steep decline from that point. And then it was an amazing experience. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the 15,000 people. I think they were waiting for the strongman competition because they were in the backstage waiting to go on.
Okay.
And so they stuck the arm wrestling on before that. But that was amazing. You got the people shouting and cheering, and thousands of people. So often the nerves get to people when you get to that level. Like,
sure.
You got lots of people, and a lot of people, they can't take losing either. So they, in their mind, they're like, oh, I've got to win. I'm really. They've come to the competition. They've never been beaten. Mm-hmm. They're really prepared, really strong, and the mental barriers of I may not win here, or I may get beaten in front of all these hundreds of people, really kind of makes them lose essentially. So
sure, no,
often
that makes sense.
Often I tell people that if you want to win, you have to lose, and that's part and parcel of actually winning.
So when you won all those 11 national championships in England, did you go compete for the world all 11 times then?
No. So what happens is, you have to top two within the national championships have the opportunity to represent their country in the world championships.
Okay.
And so I competed probably 5 times at the world championships, but I'm nowhere near good enough right now because I'm too heavy.
You're too heavy.
So essentially, arm wrestling.
Oh, you have to go up to a different weight class, or what?
Yeah, there's weight divisions, and so I have a lot of excess weight that's unnecessary for arm wrestling these days. And so back in the day, I was competing at anywhere from 143 pounds up to kind of 165 pounds, and so. But now I'm at 210 pounds. It's kind of, I'm not that much stronger. than I was before.
So what's the secret to arm wrestling? Like, because to me it was just always the strongest guy won, and then I had this guy one time that was beating all of us. Like, he just was like, knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of bugged. We were kind of like, oh, you're cheating. Like, we don't really know how he was cheating. We just kind of assumed. Like, what's the technique? What's the strategy? Like, did you have a coach? Is there, like, how much can you actually train to improve the skill?
I mean, yeah, you can train a lot. So as I said, doing the isometric type training where you've got tendon isolation. So you're doing, if I'm going to train my bicep tendons, I'm going to do half range curls on a preacher bench with really heavy weight to a 90-degree angle, or half curls, and that then really isolates the tendons. And then I'm going to do full range for the biceps. So I'm kind of building strength in multiple areas, and you can become kind of 40% stronger if you train your tendons and your bones instead of just tendons and your muscles, instead of just your muscles. So you see a lot of these big guys in the gym, and they're massive. They're not necessarily that strong.
Size. People aren't as afraid of them in a fight. Usually, it's the guy that looks you don't see him coming. He's actually stronger.
That's right. Yeah. So in answer to your question, in terms of like, did I have a trainer? I had a few people that had won multiple competitions in the UK, and I just travelled as much as I possibly could. So, I drove a couple of hours each week just to go to meet this guy who was the national champion and train from him. And I literally was driving home. I couldn't hold the steering wheel. I was almost crying with the pain. It was so much pain. It's unbelievable. And
somebody calls you and you just like can't answer the phone.
Exactly. I couldn't change gear in the car. We don't use automatics over here. It's all manual.
Plus, you're on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah, exactly. So it's even harder.
Oh, that's great.
And with the competition, so you get to compete with like top two represent the country. Then if you don't choose to go, then it kind of gets passed down.
Somebody else can go.
Yeah.
And so I guess, now that when you were doing that, was it a full-time thing, or was it just something you kind of did as a hobby on the side, or what was the motivation? Like, how'd you keep yourself motivated 11 times? That's amazing. Like, what was your drive?
I mean, the drive is the enjoyment, and the enjoyment of like the actual. So for me, I enjoy the gym. I love just going there for both mental and physical positivity, but also I like to work towards goals, and so often I see the arm wrestling competitions as kind of my goal, but they're also the thing that I don't know, messed me up a little bit in the head, because when you've achieved the pinnacle of that goal and you've worked so hard for it, then kind of where do you go from there?
Yeah, a lot of people get depressed after they reach a goal, right?
Yeah, and so
they don't really have.
That's often when I get the cycle of my training gets messed up, and I then find it hard to be motivated to work towards or go to the gym, and that's when you get depressed, and that's when you feel down, and you put weight on and stuff like that. So I think that I enjoy the arm wrestling. I enjoy the winning. I enjoy the losing actually as well. Like, it's not a bad
when
thing.
When you're doing the arm wrestling, is it best out of one, or is it best out of three, or how does it work?
It's double elimination competition. So if I go against you and you beat me, then I'm still in.
And it's just one time. We just go.
One time. So sometimes it's like. For TV format, it's a 6-round, so I'd go against you 6 rounds, and we'd like swap sides of the table, have like a minute break and all that. So that's kind of more the entertaining television type format, and that's more of an endurance type thing. But very much arm wrestling is so very aggressive, it's very explosive, and it's often just a one match. It's often over in a couple of seconds,
right?
And that I often train for that. I train arm wrestling once a week. I do the gym stuff for isometric and isolating the tendons, and I do arm wrestling specific stuff in the gym, like rope climbing with weights on my back, all sorts of stuff like that. So all of that adds
all
up
goes
and increases
into
the power.
That 4 seconds,
even half a second sometimes. It's just like if I'm stronger than you by even just a couple of percent, I could potentially win in just a couple of seconds. It's amazing.
So how long would I last in an arm lesson?
I don't know. Do you want to find out?
We'll do it at the end. How's that? And so, did you ever get hurt? I mean, I know that there's some pretty rough injuries, and have you ever had a terrible injury? I mean, you said your wrist when you were 17, but
I mean, I've had a few snapped tendons in the ligaments. Sorry, So there's in the wrist, there's load of little bones, and they are all attached by ligaments, and I've had a couple of those snap.
Oh wow!
And that's a real terrible pain for like six months, But stupidly, I still continued, and I think it's a bit crazy.
Have you ever caused a major injury to somebody else, like worse than that?
So I've arm wrestled a couple of people where they're. So I was at an event in Vienna where I was part of the like the entertainment, I guess. So they had in one corner.
They just have you guys with your shirts off,
oiled up. They had in one corner they had Indian food and Indian entertainment, and then they had Chinese dragons, and then another one they had Bedouin tents, and then in the section I was in they had Bavarian girls, big pigtails, and big beer jugs, and people were getting more drunk, more confident. As a burly
like a big like Oktoberfest or something, kind of like.
So and I was arm wrestling people for the whole night. Probably had
about your arm just
300 arm wrestles at least I had, and
that's so much.
There was one guy that kept coming back. And he was getting more and more confident as the night went along.
As more and more beers went down.
More and more beers. And I was getting more tired because I was arm wrestling more people. So as a result, at the end of the night, we had an arm wrestle, and I just felt his arm snap. It just went, and basically I looked at his arm, and his bicep was up here. It was no longer like attached to the bone. The tendon had come off.
Oh man!
And it just coiled up, and it was. I never wanted to arm wrestle again. And, but
was
funnily
he just
enough,
crying, or was he?
He went all white and he was in pain. But funnily enough, he could still pick up his beer. And I was like, "How the heck do you do that?"
That's when you've had a few beers. And, he's just picking it up by the tendon at that point.
So I had to tell him that he's going to have that staple back to the bone because he wanted to go to the gym. And he's like, "Oh, how can I still train?" And I was like, "I don't know about that. It's going to be a little while out."
Your arm detached from the bone. You don't want to get that mate. Like that.
And then another guy, his tendon came off from the top of his shoulder downwards, and I don't know why or how, but generally it can happen. Arm wrestling, like, it's inevitable that you're going to get injured. It's a very injury-prone sport. It's a very aggressive combat sport, and so inevitably you're going to get hurt and it's just
I kind of don't want to arm wrestle you at the end.
I'm not going to. Unless you get cocky. No, I'm kidding.
No, I want to be able to drive home. No, that's all. So 300 in one night. That's amazing. Is that the most you've ever done in one?
Probably, yeah. I think I tried to contact the Guinness World Record one time. We did an 8-hour arm wrestling marathon to try and raise money to get a few people to the World Championships.
Okay.
And I think I probably arm wrestled more people that night than I did on that arm wrestling marathon, to be honest. Yeah. So it's crazy.
So what do you do when you're not arm wrestling? I mean, what
Nothing.
else? No. Just all day long, just arm wrestling. You're like, I just pick stuff up. I just lift things.
I'm just a normal guy, really. I like to go to the gym to lift. I work and I spend time with my family and friends, do a bit of traveling and
love it.
Yeah.
And so you've been in Utah for on and off for what did you say, about a year now? Or
I mean, on and off, probably only about 4 or 5 months.
And what's your opinion of Utah, having not, ever been here? Like, how was that the experience of coming to Utah for the first time?
I love it. I mean, you've got all of the defined seasons where England is just like one season, which is gloomy and wet.
Yeah, I went to England in May, and it was like overcast the whole time, and like a sweater V-neck thing.
Yeah, and that was what it was like yesterday for me. So I felt just at home. But you've got the defined seasons. You've got the winter sports. You've got the summer sports. You've got the changing colours in the mountains. I went up to. I did the Alpine Loop, and I went up to Park City yesterday and saw all the colours, and it was amazing. And then, so you get great people, great opportunity. I think that, as cheesy as it sounds, it is the promised land, and it is a great place to be for opportunity and for people. So
for sure,
yeah,
I love Utah. It's one thing you said. We've got all 4 seasons. I don't mind being cold for 3 or 4 months a year. That's when I usually travel. Right. And it's during the summertime. There's nowhere better to be than
sure.
And okay, well, and so how old are you now?
36.
36. So we're about the same age. I'm turning 36 in a couple of months.
Okay, yeah.
And so you've been training since you were 7. I mean, that's 20 years of arm wrestling.
Yeah, I know. It's a long time.
So what would you recommend? Like technique-wise, give me a couple. If I'm at I'm whatever. I'm at the bar. I'm at a party with my buddies, and somebody wants to arm wrestle me. I want to win. All right, give me a couple sneak tricks that you could teach me here.
So arm wrestling is often considered. Like, people think the strength is just coming from the shoulder, like the rotation of the arm. But arm wrestling is actually a pulling sport, so it's more about using your back and your bicep and your forearm to pull the opponent towards you, as opposed to kind of rotating them over. So
that's why I kept losing.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. So it's all about pulling the opponent towards you, because if I'm pulling you towards, if I'm pulling your arm towards me, I'm opening up your arm. That's reducing your power. You've got less levers. And so that's essentially the main point, the main tip is kind of arm wrestling is a pulling sport. That's number one.
So you want to pull them towards you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 2, if you want to kind of get one over on your friends at the bar, you know, here's a little, I'll give you a little tip for kind of cheating or whatever.
Teach me how to cheat, 'cause I ain't training for 20 years. This,
so what you want to do is raise your knuckles to the ceiling as much as possible, and raise that, get as high on my hand as possible.
Really? Okay.
So you're getting an advantage on leverage, and I can't really tell because it's just a random arm.
Sure, you don't know what's coming.
So I don't know that you're trying to climb up.
By getting higher on your hand,
now you're getting more leverage, and you're going to try and take advantage of my wrist. So when you go, you're going to bend that wrist slightly and pull that towards you. So you're bending back my wrist and opening up my arm. So all of a sudden, I've got two joints basically opening up. So I've got my elbow and my wrist, and all of a sudden I've lost a lot of power then. So essentially, the opposite is dragging in the wrist, and getting really tight, and that's where I'm strongest.
Hard for me to pull me down. That makes sense.
Essentially, what you try and do is here, rotate their wrist back and pull their arm open. So it's just a real simple moves.
And they won't be able to tell if I'm.
I don't think they'll be able to tell.
It's going quick, right?
Yeah, especially on the setup. So raise the knuckle up, get as high on their hand or thumb as possible, and then as soon as it goes, you just kind of pull back into the wrist, and all of a sudden their wrist generally buckles, and all of a sudden they give up. So that's the best tip.
I got it. I'm going to at least be able to beat my nephews.
And always try and pulse, and then instead of just like rotating with the shoulder, it's much more
pull. That's what All right. I wish I'd have known this when I was in junior high. I could have won a lot of $5 bets. You know?
Definitely.
Do you ever go to the parties and bet people just random, or have you had a funny experience where people were arm wrestling and you're just like, oh, I want to try?
I always wish. That's never happened.
That's like if I was a musician, I would go I would just randomly go to karaoke nights all the time. You know? If I was like an amazing singer, I just think that'd be fun or something.
So I've been to a couple of bars where. We've kind of hustled a few people, and it's a bit of fun, So one of the guys, we went to actually a bar in Salt Lake. Is it Gracie's?
Yeah.
And one of the bouncers there, he's massive, and he's like, my mate was trying to get him to arm wrestle me, and he said, look, I'll put down $10, and if you win, you get 100. So you put in 10, and if you win, you get 100. And the guy comes up and he's like, yeah, all right, yeah. And generally when you get someone that's ultra confident, you're kind of a bit nervous, thinking, who is this guy and what he's done before? Maybe he's a competitor or something. So, I realised when I went against him why he never lost, because he was really strong and very tough to beat. But with the $100 in mind, I was kind of had to beat him,
Yeah. So you still beat him.
Yeah.
He was super strong though.
Yeah, very strong.
That's why he's a bouncer, I guess.
And then the only other time that's ever happened was in when I was about 17. I went on holiday to Ireland. It was a family vacation, and my mate did the same thing. He basically asked the biggest guy in the club, in the bar, to give me an arm wrestle for like €20 or £20. And he was like, yeah, all right, yeah. So I was basically smashed. I went so fast on him because I was so intimidated by the size of him that his arm just went down like a ton of bricks, and he's like, oh no, let's do it again. And then I did it really slow and made him feel more comfortable.
A little more drama behind it. Yeah. That's great.
And then
so next time we're out, do you mind if I try to hustle somebody?
No,
I'm gonna go up to the big. I always go up to the biggest guy at a party. This is like a life hack thing that I learned. Is anytime I go to a party, you want to get comfortable, right? You want, and so I try to kind of size up any room I can that I walk into, and anytime I see like a really huge guy that's intimidating to other people, I'll walk right up to him and I'll just kind of nudge him right in the arm or the back, and I'm like, hey, if a fight breaks out, you're on my team. Just let you know I got your back. And they always laugh, and then you're in with the big dude at the party, and then from there everyone's like, that guy obviously has some confidence. So that's my little life hack.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good.
So I'm gonna go up and like, hey, got a guy who wants to arm wrestle you, bro.
Or you just beat him yourself. Are you tips?
I don't think I'm ready for that. Throw me across the room. No, that's great. Well, next time we're going out, I'm gonna make sure to get some sucker on the line. Are you in trained mode right now?
No, I'm. I won the national title in August for the 11th time in the 5th weight division, which
just barely.
Yeah. So that was a goal of mine to try and achieve, and I haven't. I was going for my 10th national title for kind of 4 years, and there was one guy that was just beating me all the time. And he was like a new up and comer, had been in the sport for just a few years, and he was a former judo champion, and he had really strong grip, really strong wrists and stuff, and he'd been I just couldn't fathom how he'd come along and just easily beating me. He basically held me in the middle, looked at me and smiled at me, and he's like, he just beat me. It made me look like a little baby, and
it's like you're like a 9-time champion.
Yeah, 9-time. I was going for my 10th. It's quite humiliating, and then I trained for it a bit more, and I kind of focused a bit more, and dedicated my time a little bit more on it, and won my 10th last year, and then just won my 11th, and that was my like the 5th weight division, which has only been ever achieved by kind of two other people,
wow,
one other person in the country. So
you have 5 different weight divisions.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So for people that are listening right now, I mean, obviously, arm wrestling is a pretty unique, pretty niche thing. But like anybody that, I mean, you were the 11-time national champion. It's something that you set your mind out to, and you became the world champion. What advice do you give people, or like the, people that they want to be the best, whether it's the best cello player in the world, or just whatever it might be, what I think you're very inspirational to me, that you were able to achieve that goal and go after it. So what kind of advice do you have for people listening?
I would say find other people that are better than you and train with them, because that's what I did. I sought out the best in the country, and I travelled like 4 or 5 hours to one guy. I travelled 2 hours to the other guy every single week, and
and so people listening, I want them to hear that you traveled 2 hours just to go train with this guy each way.
Just to train, each way. Yeah.
And on the way home, you only had one arm.
On the way home, I literally had to pull over, and I couldn't move my arms. I was in so much pain. It was excruciating.
So find a mentor that's better than you at it. That's great. That's what I did in real estate. When I first got in, my first year, I sold 60 homes, and I thought I was the man.
Yeah.
And everybody at that time, it was 2005. Everybody could sell homes. I think I never even went to half of them. But and I went to this seminar that it was only for agents selling, I think, like 75 or more deals, but they let me in because I was like 22 and sold 60 homes, and it blew me away, right? Like, and all of a sudden I had 20 mentors from all over the country that would actually share their secrets with me, and it really inspired me I expedited my learning curve by dozens of years. In a short amount
and I think it's very important to put the right people in place. So if you're training with people who are weaker than you or not very good, or you're training with somebody that is a little bit unorthodox in terms of their techniques, it might not be the right thing for you. So you need to try and find the person that is much better than you and who can help you as a person, because everybody's unique in their styles. And you've got to find someone that you connect with and that can teach you and that you can learn from them. So there's often there's people that you may not be able to work with, or you may not be able to connect with, and so I would say that's my probably number one advice. But obviously as well is small and simple steps to achieving great things. And like I trained 5 days a week, 2 hours a day for many years, and I built it up very slowly. I went to the World Championships. I got last place in my first competition.
Oh wow! I think it's an important point too. You weren't born with this. You took last place. And you broke your wrist in the other one.
Well, I went to that competition with a broken wrist, and I was like, I had an X-ray prior, and they said I got a broken wrist, so it was a good excuse for me getting last. But I probably wouldn't have got much better anyway. But anyway, so the first competition I got absolutely last place, and if you want something, you just got to train for it and you got to work for it. But obviously, I felt like I had a bit of a talent in the first place, and I kind of just manipulated that. So essentially the first step is to kind of identify what you're really good at, or what you can be potentially really good at. Nothing generally comes to people on a plate. Some of these athletes, occasionally they seem to have it on a plate, but actually the appearance of that is not real. That Usain Bolt trains unbelievably hard, and you may think that he's just been gifted with that, but a lot of these guys have been given a bit of talent and they put a heck of a lot of work in.
Yeah, my friends that are professional athletes, their talent level was about the same as several of my other friends, frankly, that were in that same position, but they either trained harder or trained, and then you get a couple breaks or whatever else, but it is usually he who trains the hardest, and it's just a principle in life. I mean, if you want something, you gotta go get it. So. Well, I'm just kind of sum this up a little bit. What kind of things would you say then? I guess what do you do when you're trying to really share your talent with other people? Do you mentor other people? Do you what do you do now to give back now that you've been the 11-time champion?
So about 10 years ago, I started an arm wrestling club that is one of the biggest arm wrestling clubs in the country, in the UK.
Oh, so
great. We have a lot of fun. We did a video. We got about 4 million views on YouTube, just arm wrestling techniques and tips and stuff. So I try and help people.
What's the YouTube channel? So if people want to go to it.
It's on.
We'll link it.
It's called Video Jog. Yeah. So basically, they did a video on how to arm wrestle, and we were just a part of that.
Okay.
So we taught them. And so I do when I'm back in England. I run an arm wrestling club, and I train with some guys over in Utah and try and help them. There's a guy over here that's trying to become the national champion, and I think he's got great potential in terms of like his levers and his size and his hands and his strength, but he just needs a bit of development in terms of the technique and the aggression and the speed. So arm wrestling is so much more than just kind of power and technique.
Yeah, I watched some of your videos, and you guys, I mean, you're like flying across the table basically. It's pretty.
I mean, people think like they're like, who the heck is this guy? He's a different person in arm wrestling. I bring all my aggression comes out in arm wrestling or in the gym even, but yeah, I think that helping other people in terms of that, once you've achieved certain things, is very important. And some people, I think that I've often felt, a little bit unworthy of like maybe training people. I don't know why, but
11-time national champion. Yeah.
No, but I mean, you think essentially if you have a little bit of talent or a little bit of skill in a certain area, you can give back to people.
Sure.
It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a national champion or a world champion. You can help people, and there's often people that are, they feel inadequate perhaps to do that. And I think,
sure.
It is good to give back and share your thoughts and opinions.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, what's next for you? I mean, you're getting to an age where you're probably getting ready to retire from arm wrestling now, right?
Retire full stop.
You do a lot of really cool things. Like you said, like your marketing, doing marketing things like that. Are you planning to stay over here in Utah for a while now, or?
I'm on I come over in our consultancy, so I own a consultancy business in London, and I just come here on a consultancy basis for meetings and travelling to events. But I think my arm wrestling career is essentially, I'll continue to arm wrestle at competitions once a year, probably the national championships, and then I generally do it at events like Mr. Olympia, where I get in a peanut costume or something, represent the brand I work for, PB Fit, and that kind of thing, just more for fun entertainment, really.
Okay.
Yeah, just for.
That's great. And when are the national championships so we can watch or see that?
In August. Every August.
Every year in August.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put a link to what that is.
Cool,
I think people would be interested to watch.
Yeah.
It's a cool story, man.
Thank you very much.
So it's been a pleasure ever since I met you. You're one of the nicest guys I've met. I think we just randomly started talking at a party, and I found out a few months later you're like, oh do this arm wrestling thing, and I was like, it's just such a random thing to hear. I was totally intrigued, but yeah, man, I look forward to it. We'll put some of your videos. We'll link it to this so people can see them. And
cool.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks. Cover that thumb up. Get high on the hand. Knuckles up. That's good.
Right there.
Ready, go.
Oh! What did I do? That was fun.